most common form of butadiene is 1,3-butadiene. It can be produced a few different ways: by extracting C4 hydrocarbons, by dehydrogenating N-butane, and by catalytic dehydrogenating of normal butane.
Styrene butadiene rubber is made one of two ways: emulsion or solution. An emulsion is when the base materials are mixed but do not completely blend together into the new substance. Solution styrene butadiene rubber is when two materials are completely mixed down to the molecular level. Emulsion styrene butadiene rubber is made continuously, but solution styrene butadiene rubber can be made in batches so that extract mixture can be refined. This makes solution styrene butadiene rubber more versatile but more expensive for the manufacturers to produce. One of the factors that make styrene butadiene rubber a suitable tire rubber is its oil resistance. Oil can get on the road surfaces of cars and be transferred to tires when they travel on the roads. Tires can also come into contact with oil during maintenance. Petroleum especially can eat away at rubber, but styrene butadiene rubber is highly resistant to the degradation caused by almost all oils, with the exception of the mineral oil, which styrene butadiene rubber has poor resistance to.
Industry considers butadiene to be an essential alternative to natural rubber for use in tires. It is the 36th most produced chemical in the United States, according to Shell, who is the biggest producer of butadiene globally.
According to a recent report by energy analysts GBI Research, U.S. companies imported over 300,000 tons of butadiene in 2012. The leading butadiene suppliers were Canada, South Korea, Netherlands, China, and the UK and Germany. The report forecasts U.S. demands to rise to over 500,000 tons by 2020.
The chemical was developed in reaction to World War II and lack of access to the rubber fields of Southeast Asia. And by 1950, natural rubber was nearly replaced by synthetic rubbers. Industry, specifically Shell and SABIC, considers butadiene to be an irritant in large concentration and only a suspected human carcinogen, according to their website. Butadiene has high volatility and low water solubility. When released into the environment, it evaporates into the air and breaks down quickly in sunlight and degrades in the air with a half-life of less than 2 hours. Modeling data has predicted that butadiene has a low potential to bioaccumulate, and long-term exposure to aquatic organisms is of low concern, according to their website. More recently, butadiene has officially been listed as a known human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. But the only company to recognize this on their website is the TPC groups. Shell Company boasts a stewardship program that teaches proper handling techniques. It is recommended to store butadiene in steel containers and pipe it through steel pipes. Contact with oxidizing agents may cause ignition, and this is why it's stored under pressure or at temperatures below 1.6 degrees Celsius. They require goggles, rubber gloves, and protective clothing when handling butadiene. Also, a self-contained breathing apparatus must be used. Across from Port Neches Grove High School sports fields sits a large facility that manufactures synthetic rubber using butadiene, and several other plants in the general area of the school. Outside of these plants, air monitoring found levels far above safe levels. Jane, a cheerleader from Port Neches Grove Indianettes, spent many hours on the football field cheering. By the age of 29, she was diagnosed with acute lymphotic leukemia. She died 12 years later at 41. From 1963 to 1993, 26 students and former students from the high school were diagnosed with similar cancers. Of those 26, 14 died, leaving local residents to eerily refer to the high school as Leukemia High. When looking at the Lacking Texas Cancer Registry, showed Port Neches, Port Arthur, and Beaumont as having cancer rates significantly higher than state averages. In fact, the highest recorded level of butadiene were found in the Port Neches area. The polluting company's study of the area found only a small excess of cancers among male students and less than average among female students. This is because the firm's study only included those who died from cancer and excluded those who were still alive. The study was also limited to the population of the town that attended the high school during the years determined by Rothman, whom was the head of the firm that was hired to complete the study. This selection of populations manipulated the data in industry's favor. But even with their biased motives, the report showed a substantial amount of non-malignant tumors among the young people that attended the high school.
Cancer is the second leading cause of death among U.S. children, with few known risk factors. There is increasing interest in the role of air pollutants.
Cancer is a group of over 100 diseases characterized by abnormal, uncontrolled cell growth. In a healthy body, cells die, grow, and are replaced in a very controlled way. Damage or changes in the genetic material of the cells by the environment or internal factors sometimes results in cells that do not die and continue to multiply into a mass of cancer cells or a tumor. Most cancer-related deaths are due to metastasis, malignant cells that penetrate into the circulatory system and establish colonies in other parts of the bodies. Great advancements have been made, but cancer is still one of the leading causes of death for people under the age of 45. In the United States, 1 in every 4 people die from cancer.
In the paper Long-Term Trends in Ambient Air Butadiene Levels in Houston, Texas, they say most of the areas monitored have measured reductions in annual average butadiene levels in the range of 40 to 80%. The greatest decrease and statistically significant downward trends have been measured at the monitoring sites closest to the industrial factories. 17% of all U.S. industrial facilities that report butadiene air emissions in 2008 toxic release inventory are located in the Houston, Texas area. With over 2.5 million passenger vehicles in the Houston, Texas area and light-duty trucks registered in Harrison County, motor vehicles are also a significant source category for butadiene emissions. In epidemiological studies of men in the styrene butadiene rubber industry, leukemia mortality is associated with butadiene exposure, and this association is most pronounced for high-intensity butadiene exposures. Metabolism is an important determinant of butadiene carcinogenicity. Butadiene is metabolized to several electrophilic indeterminates, including epoxybutadiene, dipoxybutadiene, and epoxybutadiene-diol, which differ considerably in their genotoxic potency. The modes of action for human leukemia and for the observed solid tumors in rodents are both likely related to the genotoxic potencies for one or more of these metabolites. A number of factors related to metabolism can also contribute to nonlinearity in the dose-response relationship, including enzyme induction and inhibition. Assuming that humans and rodents are similarly susceptible to the effects of butadiene metabolites, the degree of overestimation would likely be approximately 2 orders of magnitude if based on mice, and 1 order of magnitude if based on rodents.
Our ecological analysis included 977 cases of childhood leukemia cancer diagnosed from 1995 to 2004. We obtained the EPA's 1999's model estimates of butadiene for 886 census tracts surrounding Houston, Texas. We adjusted models for age, sex, race, ethnicity, and community levels, socioeconomic status. Census tracts with the highest butadiene level had elevated rates of all leukemia, rate ratios of 1.37, and confidence interval of 95%. The association was higher for acute myeloid leukemia. Myeloid leukemia is a cancer that starts in the bone marrow, the soft tissue inside bones that help form blood cells. The cancer grows from cells that would normally turn into white blood cells. After narrowing the search from 997 to 670, the results indicate there were a higher proportion of males than female cases. A greater proportion of ALL and AML cases were Hispanic. High levels of exposure was occurring, ranges from 0.01 to 2.41 nanograms approximately, 10 times the median level. Compare that to the nation's inflation rate. Not only does butadiene cause leukemia in children, but it also causes neurotoxicity damage to everybody. Statistical analysis was conducted on the collected neurological parameters for a random cohort of 310 patients who have been environmentally exposed to butadiene and compared with a cohort of 50 matched individuals with similar backgrounds but who are not exposed to butadiene. Results indicate that butadiene has met the criteria and features of neurotoxicity. About 6% of the exposed patients demonstrated irreversible neurotoxicity that may need to be longitudinally scrutinized. Did you know at any given time the world's drunk population is just that, 6%?
Several Environmental Protection Agency programs initiated since 1990 regulate the amount of man-made butadiene emitted into the air. Section 112 of the U.S. Clean Air Act lists butadiene as a hazardous air pollutant and requires EPA to regulate these pollutant emissions from major industrial sources by setting national emission standards. EPA lists butadiene as one of 33 hazardous air pollutants targeted by the agency's Urban Air Toxicity Strategy, which addresses area source emissions. The EPA has also listed butadiene as a mobile source air toxin and regulates these mobile source air toxin emissions through tailpipe emission standards. These regulatory and voluntary actions have helped cut butadiene emissions in Houston, Texas area roughly half over the past 10 to 20 years.